Welcome to Dub Life Diaries, the podcast where passion meets the open road. I'm Joe Person, your host, and also a lifelong dubber. Buckle up, because this ride is just beginning. This podcast is sponsored by Volksmania magazine. Good times, great cars, awesome Volksmaniacs. Visit Volksmania.com to learn more about this class-leading VW magazine. VW family, buckle up and drop the clutch, because today's guest is a living legend in the air-cooled universe. He got his first VW back in 1970. That's right, that's when bell-bottoms were still cool, when the Beatles were still on vinyl. Fast forward a few decades, and he's still rolling, still building, still showing up at meets with more passion than guys half his age. He's the soul behind Texas VW Campouts. He's a charity show OG who never made a dime, but did make a massive impact. He's built a beast of a single cab in a garage with just grit, with grind, and with good vibes. He runs the infamous Oval Office group on Facebook, over 300 ovals going strong. It's all about that oval window life. If you're flipping through the first mega issue of Volks America, you got it. You guessed it. That's going to be his oval on the cover. This guy's not just a part of the scene, he is a part of the story. So whether you're riding slammed, if you're riding stock, or if you're just somewhere in between, let's get ready for some tales, for some laughs, and a little bit of VW soul from a guy who is truly retired, but he's never parked. Let's give it up for the legend, Mr. Paul Smith. In the building.
Everything's going great, man. Everything, just excited to be here, and I appreciate you very much.
Awesome. Yes, no problem. So before we get rolling today, I like to give a shout out to a couple sponsors. Obviously, Volksmania magazine, my primary sponsor. These guys are awesome. Best VW magazine out there. If you haven't yet checked it out, please do. Use DubLife10 at the checkout. That's DUBLIFE, the number 10 at checkout, and that'll give you 10% off of your issue. Shout out also to Dino Styles, Dino's Garage, DC Metro. Awesome guy, huge supporter of the podcast. Dino, what's up, sir? Also, shout out to V-Dubs on the Pier, downtown St. Pete. Coming up on 5/24, Memorial Day weekend, we've got a huge parade, Volkswagen parade. Over 100 cars are registered. We got vendors. We got all kinds of stuff getting ready to happen. So shout out to V-Dubs on the Pier, St. Pete, Florida. And then lastly, before we dive into Paul today, I do want to also give a huge shout out to our sponsor, Salty Dub. They are event organizers, promoters, and serious V-Dub culture curators. From epic get-togethers to must-have swag, they bring the vibes that keep the community rolling. Thank you, Salty Dub, for supporting the podcast and helping us keep the V-Dub spirit alive. Check them out and rep the lifestyle, www.saltydub.com. You'll be glad you did. All right, sir. Back to you.
Absolutely.
So, retired. What does that actually mean for a lifelong VW guy? What does retired actually mean?
That means that I don't have to take my vacations from work just to go to car shows. And means if somebody says, "Hey, let's go for a little cruise," I just drop what I'm doing, and I get to go to all the shows that I really am able to, and basketball games, and just anything comes up. That means that I'm able to go. And I have a beautiful wife that allows me to do all that, and which makes it a lot easier in my life. But yeah, it opens a lot of things up to be able to not have to have that responsibility of running a grocery store.
Man, it sounds like I want to be retired. So your first VW memory was what, 1970?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about the car. Tell me about the vibe back then.
I had no idea what I was getting into. I actually, when I bought that, I bought a brand new 1970 VW Combi bus from University Volkswagen in Fort Worth, Texas. They were dealership that was in an old gas station right by Texas Christian University. And of course, now they're a huge dealership up in Fort Worth. But I bought it because I was racing flat track motorcycles, took out the middle seat, and no telling where it is, and it's probably worth a bunch now, like all the rest of them. But I could put my Bull Taco motorcycle caddy corner in that space where the bench seat was. So that's why I bought the Volkswagen, bec to haul that bike around. Well, in 1970 was the first year, I believe, that they went to a little bit bigger sized motor, but they didn't beef up a lot of the studs, this, that, and the other, and the heads would loosen up. Well, one day we were coming back from the motorcycle races at the Astrodome in Houston, Texas, and was facing a pretty good strong headwind, and, man, it shattered that motor in the middle of nowhere. So it was good that the Volkswagen company actually they warranted that motor, even though it was out of warranty, because they knew they had a problem. And so I thought that was pretty cool. So
Heck yeah.
after that, after the rebuild, it just wasn't the same, horsepower wise. It just didn't seem like it had the that it used to have. So I got rid of it and got a Chevy van. And Chevys and Ford vans were the big deal back at that era.
Well, yeah, they had V8s in them.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, and the
Yeah.
van scene was really big.
You could
at
tow the
that
trailer, you could tow the house, you could tow the neighbor's house away. You could tow whatever you want to.
Exactly, right,
Yeah.
and suck that gas down. Oh my god, it was terrible, but
Oh, yeah.
anyway, it
Yeah.
got me to the races, and then I started racing drag bikes, and so that worked out great. I had an enclosed trailer pull the drag bike, so the Chevy worked out great. Well, our daughter was no, she was turning 16, excuse me, she was turning 16, and when the kids turned 16 and got their driver's license,
Right.
the grandkids, my mom would give the kids $500 to buy, on their used car. Well, she had said, "Daddy, I sure would like to have a VW Bug." And so I started hunting for VW Bugs. And of course, they laughed at me when I would call a used car dealership in 1999. Hey, how many bugs do y'all have on the lot? He said, "We hadn't seen any bugs on this lot since the 70s." He said, "They're just not out there right now."
Yeah.
My son, he was quite an explorer. He knew the neighborhood like the back of his hand, and he said, "Daddy, one of our neighbors has got a Volkswagen Bug underneath his carport." So I went over and talked to him, and he had a '62 ragtop, nice condition, ran perfect. He had parked it, fired right up. So we struck a deal, and so I bought that '62, and my daily driver was a S10 Blazer.
Okay. I remember those.
Uh-huh. I told
Was it
look,
was it the
no,
4.3
uh,
6-cylinder or was it?
6-cylinder, yeah,
Yeah,
6-cylinder.
4.3. That was a sharp block, lots of torque.
Yeah, it was a nice little vehicle. So I told her, I said, I wasn't much for giving a 16-year-old a classic car. I just still don't believe that. It's not the right time for him to drive but anyway, they wrecked something else, not a classic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Wreck the Hyundai.
her $500 for the Beetle and gave her the S10 Blazer. So
Okay.
that worked out great. And actually, when I got that '62, it literally changed my life, as far as going to shows and meeting the people and
I wanna
like
touch on that. I do wanna touch on that, but I wanna compare a couple things because it's not every day I get to talk to somebody that's been in the Volkswagen scene since 1970. See, I was born in '77. So you were already in the scene since long before I was born. So I just want to hear like what the scene now. You go to car shows now, you see how big the scene is, right? In the '90s, it wasn't cool to own a Volkswagen Beetle. Now it's super cool to own a Volkswagen Beetle, according to general population. We've always felt that way. Those of us that are in the culture that are that are part of it. But let's compare real quick. What's the vibe like today versus back then? Explain the differences of how that vibe was.
I really wasn't into, I guess you'd call it the scene, because our little town, it was just me and 2 other friends.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I, that we're in Volkswagen. And then, but like I said, then I started going to the show. My first show was in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yep.
And I drove the car everywhere, to the shows. And that's 300 something miles one way to Tulsa from our house in the middle of Texas. And so, I met a lot of really nice people up there. And then that kind of got the ball rolling. Then we drove up to Denver, Colorado, and we actually Morrison, and then we went to Rocky Mountain Motor Works, which was a big deal back in those days.
Was this right around 92?
A little after that,
A little after that.
a
So
little after that, maybe 95, 96 at Vandermeer Speedway.
so
And then
was this your first kind of car show experience after the little break that you took between cars?
no, this was still with the 62.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay. Then we sold the well, no, that see, I bought the VW M70 and then drove that till 99 or 95, something like that.
Whoa.
And it had that big gap, because I was racing motorcycles. And
Right.
that was my life. You know what I mean? Like any hobby, you get, wrapped up in it. And
Sure.
so
Becomes your life.
then I got the bug and we started going to a bunch of shows and meeting people. And back in those days, you'd have a computer. So you had to be a member of these clubs to get their newsletters to find out where the shows were. And that's kind of how we communicated and everything. Then we got the computer and that worked out really well, to keep in touch with everybody. But like I say, we had to go to the shows to actually see our friends, our Volkswagen friends.
Right.
San Antonio, 150 to the south, Dallas, Fort Worth, 130 to the north. So we were right in the middle and we were in a good place to be, you know what I mean? To go to all those different places.
Right. And see these different shows. What was the first show that when you got back into the scene, what was the first show that you went to?
Okay. That Tulsa show.
Talk to me. You had mentioned you talked about building the single cab in your buddy's garage. I want to hear kind of the whole story of how that happened and what how that evolved.
Sure. In 1995, I saw an ad in the Dallas paper for a single cab, $1,500 running. I went up there and talked to the gentleman. I said, I'd like to take it. I'd like to have it. It was in a kind of a lockup area by a apartment building. And so then we went back home. I got the money. We took a trailer up there and we picked it up. And then we started working on it and it ran good, but the ring and pinion was out. So if you backed up, it was like a bucket Bronco. I mean, it shook and shimmied and everything. Now it was painted white with looked like whitewash, like they used to do fences, literally just real thin white paint.
Chalky almost, yeah.
Yeah. So we washed that at the car wash and it washed off and the logos came up of Bentley's paint truck from Sherman, Denison, Texas. Back to, getting it actually restored. I took it to a body shop and they're in Temple, Texas, where I was living at the time, where I grew up actually. And they took it down to the bare metal and we're doing a good job. Well, and all of a sudden I'd start going over there at about 3:00 in the afternoon, just, talking and having a good time with them. Well, they started opening their beer up about 2:00. And I said, this ain't working. This is not working. So they moved to a different place, the body shop did, and evidently he had got into some hard times. So another friend of mine is a VW genius. They called him that in Hot VW magazine, but he's really very knowledgeable. And they were working over there, and then they quit. They just quit working on it. The single cab didn't have the gates on it. They were just piling stuff up on the bed of the single cab. Bob Winters, this friend of mine, was working for this company that he installed those jacks, the lifts in a garage.
Okay.
So, and the frame machines and all that sort of stuff, they rented to these body shops. Well, he had gotten word that this place was fixing to get padlocked by the sheriff for not paying his, you know, probably the rent or something like that. He said, we got to go over and we got to get your truck out of there before they padlock that thing. And then it becomes a real pain, to get it out of the shop. And in the meantime, I had a stroke and I was in the hospital.
Well, dang.
So, yeah, really, really. So, Bob and another friend of mine, Alan Flanchy, and another VW friend in the neighborhood, they went over there and got that. Well, they told me while I was in the hospital bed, and I said, "Well, let me get up. I'm gonna go over there with you." He said, "Boy, you're gonna stay right there in that bed. You ain't going anywhere." So
There's a good friend.
Yeah, they are. Yes,
Yeah.
they were, and still are. They go over there and tell this guy, he says, "We're gonna pick the single cab up." And of course, like I said, they had all the junk, on the bed. And he goes, real smart, Alec. He goes, "Where am I gonna put all my stuff, man, if you take this truck?" And of course, they didn't think that was all that funny. So anyway, they got the truck out of there, and his son was having a little trouble with the law. So he was about to come home and he needed and he was an expert body man and metal man.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So he had it set up for his son to have a job on my truck. So it worked out real good that he got that body straight and just did everything perfect. The bed, everything except the gates. He didn't do the gates. So anyway, another friend that painted was on the Labor Day weekend, where they had I think they actually had a 5-day weekend because it was out by Fort Hood, a big army post by our house, across the lake. And so they, they got a 5-day work weekend. So he was working at Patriot Body Shop over in Killeen, Texas. And he asked the guys, the owners, if he could do some work on his own over that weekend. So he painted the truck that weekend. We got it home, no gate, and the guy that painted said, "Well, I'll take care of your gates later." Well, I should have known that there's something in the woodshed at that time. It wasn't going to be good. So anyway, we started working on and actually, when I say we, Bob and Bruce Winters is the ones that did the work. I come up with the ideas. I think I'm real good with the ideas, but as far as the workmanship, that's not me. I do the little things, not anything like they do. So anyway, they were massaging the body and putting of course the rubber back on and everything that needed to go back on it. And so one day we hear something outside of his garage, boom, boom, like that, big crack. And this guy had come by in his pickup and thrown the gates in his front yard, just threw them out there, didn't say anything, just threw them out in the front yard and took off. Yeah. Yeah, ready, go figure.
I thought VW guys were chill. Dang.
Well, he wasn't a VW guy. He was a painter. He was just a painter. And that's why the hot VW article with my truck, the Phantom painter. I told Dean Kirsten, I said, we just put the Phantom painter. Well, I'm not going to give this guy any credit.
Yeah, right on.
It is. But anyway, so
I know everybody
got a story like that, with getting them done if they don't do all the body work and stuff themselves. So anyway, Bob and Bruce got it together, got the truck together. And actually, the first show I went to with the single cab at Rocky Mountain Motor Works on Saturday, and then Vandermeer Speedway in Denver on Sunday, and out of 300 cars, and it was a popularity deal. It's one of those participant judge deals, and got number one out of all the 300 cars. I think a bunch of the Phoenix bus guys liked my bus. And so anyway, whatever, I was thankful for that. So then I got another friend to do the gates, and the rest was history. And I changed a little bit every year on the truck. One year I'd put dual carbs on it. Next year I put different wheels and tires on it. Then put the deluxe trim on it, then hearse bumpers on it. And and like I say, I didn't want 2 cars. I didn't need 2 Volkswagen. And so I just, did a little bit Easter preview of dresses and stuff. That was at the first show, something was different. So each year we did a little bit more. We put a vinyl back like it was logoed when it was a paint truck.
Oh, cool.
And,
Okay.
it was actually that paint truck in North Texas. And I finally found I was doing another hobby of mine, and the guy, it was up in North Texas, kind of by the Denison, Texas area. And he said, I see you got Denison, Texas on there. Are you from Denison? He said, I had a friend of mine. He was an apprentice painter for that company. And so I said, man, well, if you don't mind, have him call me. I'd love to find out more of the history of the truck. Well, they only had one VW in their fleet. They were the top paint company in North Texas at that time, he said. They had 20 trucks, but only one Volkswagen. He said, you don't know why they just had one Volkswagen, but that's what they had. But anyway, so I found a little history on that
Nice.
and just went everywhere with the truck. It like I said, got featured in Hot VW and won a lot of best of shows. And we put rack and pinion steering on it out of parts that Bob had in his on the shop floor. I mean, like I say, this guy was just incredible. And we put
Awesome.
disc brakes all the way around, and it drove. I mean, it couldn't have driven any better than any other vintage Volkswagen.
Sure.
So anyway, so did that over the years, and the old truck kind of it was in Wolfgang International's ad a couple of years, and so that a lot of people knew it, and it kind of got a life of its own, and it's so much fun. The Zone was the name of it, because when we first got it, my son and I we'd put snowmobile suits on and drive it in the winter because it was so cold. And we went to the Jack in the Box. I love Jack in the Box tacos, and so we went to the Jack in the Box, and this girl opens the window up, and she says, "That is the ugliest thing I have ever seen." That was before we painted it or anything. It was still the whitewash. So I took out of there, and she's still holding those tacos, because I am not buying no tacos from a girl that tells me that's the ugliest thing she's ever seen.
Right.
So anyway, then that was before the whole thing got restored. So and I told my son, I said, "Man, I'm in the zone when I drive this thing." So that's what we named it, the Zone.
Zone. I love
So
it. All right. Hey, I want to touch
it,
on the charity shows that you
right.
eventually would end up getting into. Talk to me about, I know you never kept a dime or anything, but talk to me about, where the money went, why you never, made it profitable, and just teach me just a little bit about these events that you put on, these charity shows.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Still have people want me to do shows and tell me about how much they enjoyed some of the shows. But in 1999, we put a show on. I worked for ACB Food Stores, which is a big chain of food stores here in Texas, and family owned. And I worked for them for 50 years. Well, we would have selling events. Well, I told the big manager at the time that I could put a car show on, and our store in our region was a big sponsor for juvenile diabetes. So we did a show, and I didn't charge anything, but we raised money for, through donations and stuff. We had a big bucket there that people would just throw money in, and we had a show and gave the money that year to the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation. Okay, the next year we had another show. Hot VW put it, it was covered in the magazine, and we had about 100 entrants. And like I said, it was on the parking lot of our grocery store. So we outgrew the parking lot. Several of the other businesses that was in the complex started griping because we were taking up all the parking on that Saturday morning. But that year we gave the money to the Ronald McDonald House,
Nice.
which was a neat deal.
Yeah, I
And after
remember.
after that show, we would cruise out to a little farming community, German community, west of town, Westphalia, Texas, which came in perfect. The name, Westphalia, Volkswagen is synonymous.
Yeah.
And then we started getting we called it Bus and Bugtoberfest because it was always in October, and we started to get more buses than bugs. I want to do a camp out also. the Saturday night after the show. Well, the camp out was out here where I live on Lake Belton and Morgan's Point Resort. And so that year we just did it kind of in a field out by the baseball park, and we made $1,000, and we donated that to the Morgan's Point Police Department because we're just a very small little town. We don't have much businesses, no industry, no schools, no post office. They don't have much for extras.
Sure.
So that year we made $1,000. I think I must have charged a little bit for the entry fee. The stores at HEB never did. We never charged anything. So then we had another show at the ballpark, and I think we raised $2,000 that year for the police department. This friend of mine out here said, Paul, there's a park over here that's not used very much. I want to take you over there and see if you think it would be a good place to have a car show. And oh my God, you go through this residential area and then you go into this park, and it's a peninsula on the lake. Your cars are right up on the edge of the lake and everything. And I mean, oh my Lord, I thought I was in heaven. So anyway, each year we donated the money to the police department. The city of Morgan's Point would furnish those big lights, the big spotlights where we'd have a little bit of light at night, and then of course we'd turn them off, 10 o'clock, something like that. They even built us a shower stall, mobile, and they brought it out there. They still bring it out there each year.
Wow.
Like I say, we started having an auction, and that's where we made our money. We did charge $25, but that was 3 days camping, a cruise on Saturday, a barbecue on Saturday night, and a breakfast on Sunday, all for $25. So, I mean, that's you can't hardly beat a deal like that.
No, that's a screaming deal.
Yeah,
I would pay that. I would pay that just for the Texas barbecue.
Absolutely, and it was good. So, like I say, we topped out at about 100 buses, which in Texas, that's a lot of buses at one time. We were given $5,000 to $7,000 each year, and I was getting sponsors to buy, stuff and
Yeah, sure.
boards and stuff like that. And had a good friend of mine from Sioux City, Iowa, that had a deal with O'Reilly Auto Parts, and he would buy when they'd open a new store or remodel an old store. They wouldn't leave any of the old stuff in there at that time. That's what they were doing, all new stuff. So he would buy that stuff, and we'd meet him at a show in the Midwest, and he would give me totes of stuff to give away, and some auction, some raffle. So that was very helpful.
Yeah.
Then participants, they bought in big time for helping Morgan's Point, since Morgan's Point government was all over our welcoming
Sure.
our show. And we had a group called Cops, and that was a group here in town that was kind of a support group for the police. The money we raised, we'd give to cops, then they would give it to the police department. We wrote it. The bank made us a big check, where we'd, right. But anyway, it was pretty cool. Yeah. Really. Absolutely. And the sheriff would come out, not the sheriff, the chief police would come out, and we'd present him with the check and the money in. So I did that. Me and my wife was my right-hand man. She never goes to any of the other shows with me, but any of the shows that we put on, she was there helping out. I mean, couldn't have done it without her and the help from other volunteers. But so anyway, I did it for 10 years. We did it for 10 years. The last year we did, I started having little health problems. But the last year we did it, we made $11,000.
Wow. How much of that got donated?
All of it.
Wow.
Well, from the participants, the $25 from them, and then from the auction, and most of the auction was items that they donated or handmade. I mean,
what year? What year? Just to paint the picture, what year was the last show?
Well, it's still going.
No, I mean that you were a part of.
Oh, right. Yes. Let's see, started in, I would say 2010.
Okay.
was the last year that we did it. And then I was lucky enough that another friend of mine took it over. Shirley Clark, a lady in North Texas, took it over, and she's had it for, I guess, 12 years now.
Okay.
It's still the same place.
Still rocking. Do you still go?
Yes, yeah, it's in October.
Yeah.
The
Beautiful weather.
still sometimes that time of the year is like you can have the best weather in Texas, or you can have the crummiest weather because those cold fronts start coming
That's
down.
right.
That brings the rain. So
Yeah.
we
And
the city.
lightning and tornadoes and all
Oh
kinds of
yeah,
crazy
all
stuff
of
y'all
that.
have. Dallas Fort Worth area,
Yep, but
I taught a
lucky.
class out there for a few years,
Oh
uh,
wow.
almost 4 years. And
Yeah.
I brought my camper in a couple times, and I'd be in a KOA in Dallas Fort Worth, and I got these sirens, these going off for the tornadoes, and I'm like,
Yep.
hey, I like hurricanes. I can run from those.
Yep. Yep. We even had a couple of years. It's been pretty good weather for them this year. We've had years that it blew all the tents down and blew the awnings down, but and that year I think we had to get like back end loaders or front end loaders to pull the buses out of some of the stuff. They'd put
Wow.
some very new dirt for us, and to and that was terrible, But anyway, we got them all out of there and everything. The city helped, and that was my last. It was called Transporters at the Point, and now and that's what I asked Shirley whenever she asked to take it over. I said, "I would love for you to have it, Shirley. I just asked that you change the name," and she did. She changed it to the Texas Bus Fair.
Okay, and it's still
That's what
rocking.
it's called now.
Still
Uh-huh.
going
Yeah,
on to
and
this day.
I believe every first weekend in October still.
Okay. Awesome, man. I'll check that show out for sure. Let's fast
Absolutely.
forward to the finding of the Oval Office, which is your Facebook group.
Alrighty. So, we mentioned that I had the zone, the pickup, the single cab, 61 single cab. I had some trouble with the motor on it. Friend of mine from Iowa sent me a brand new long block. We put it in, and there was more when we fired it up. There's more oil on the garage floor than there was in the motor. And there again, I was having
Oh,
some hospital issues, and it was a very dark part of my life, with the things going on, and I just didn't want to deal with it. And so we got the hospital stuff straightened out, and I was at a show locally, and a friend of mine, I heard him talking to another friend about, yeah, man, I'd like to sell my oval. That next day, I called him at the house, and I said, man, would you like to trade that oval for a single cab? He said, which single cab you talking about? I said, mine. He said, heck yeah, in a nice way of putting it. And yeah, so we did a little deal, a little horse trading, and came out okay on it. And it was completely a stock when I had it black wall tires, the whole 9 yards, and then I kind of finessed it like I wanted the big white walls and did some other stuff. But anyway,
what
so
what year was this
that is that I got the
that you got the Oval?
possibly 2018.
Okay, so relatively recently. And then
Yeah,
that stimulated you to start Oval Office, which is your Facebook group, right?
I saw that, I liked Facebook and got on there, and that's how I would keep up with my shows and my friends, through Facebook. And
Sure.
I don't know, somehow or another, the Oval Office just popped in my head that that's a cool name.
It is. It's a very cool
So,
name. So
yeah,
you've got
so we
this Oval
worked it
Office
out.
award. There's an award
Yeah,
that you give out at car shows. Talk to me about that award.
yes, the awards that I give out are resourced old trophies and plaques and items that I won in car shows, and I rebrand them as the Oval Office pick. Also had a friend of mine, Larry Schultz, up in Kansas. His shop made me a bunch of made me 10 of the metal cutout ones for the Oval Office. So I've used those also, but most of them are the ones that I recycle. And the
Awesome.
one that I gave out at the last one was a really, really cool one that I gave at the Dub Splash up in Grand Prairie, Texas, to a real nice oval. But that's what I did. I just go around and I pick my favorite oval. It might be the rattiest one there. It doesn't make any difference. If for some reason it catches my eye, I pick that one. It might be the best oval there as far as quality,
Sure.
but it just depends on what I
So
like.
we really don't know what the credentials are. It's just whatever you're feeling, whatever hollers
Right.
at you.
Yeah. All it has to do is be an oval.
Yeah. So it's almost like the oval is like a cat for you. Because you know how they say cats choose you? So when you go to a show, the oval chooses you, right? And then that one gets the award. That's interesting. That's interesting.
Exactly. And I take a picture, of course, of the cars and take a picture of the registration card where I remember the name, and then we actually give the award away at the award ceremony each time, down here. And I don't know if they do it in other states. Well, I know they do it at Eureka Springs, Arkansas, but they have club awards, where the clubs also present their favorite car. So I present our award in that time spot.
Nice. This oval, again, gets lots of attention. Beautiful car. Made the cover of Volks America, which I believe was the first Volks America, and you had a feature in that. Tell me how that felt to have your car on the cover of a magazine.
Felt fantastic. I mean, I cannot thank Paul Caves, Jason Vogan, and the late great Tim Lerma did the photo shoot at an awesome, awesome venue up in Kennedale, Texas. So that's Paul had gotten Tim to do the photos, did a great job. Then Tim passed away of COVID
Ooh.
and at a very young age, very young age. And he was a Volkswagen man,
Oh,
also as a great photographer.
COVID has definitely left its mark.
It has, yes,
Sure
yes.
has. I can't believe that we
That was
all went through that, lived through that, and have
exactly,
these stories to tell. We lost family members during COVID as well. Uh,
exactly.
and it
Yeah.
was, what a challenging time though. Let's go back to the Volks America cover. Yeah, let's just touch on that a little bit more. So you got your car on the cover of a magazine. How was the feature? Did it do a good job painting a picture of you and the car and your life?
Oh, I think did a wonderful job, and the pictures, the story was awesome. It wasn't one of those deals where I had to say, "Well, I was misquoted." You know what I mean? One of those deals. It was all. It was a. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and like I say, that issue sold out really quick, and there's no more issues of it to be had.
Yeah, I love how I like how they do that.
I do too.
I
Yes,
like how it's like, "Hey, if you wanna be a part of the club, you better get in and buy one, otherwise you ain't gonna see it,
right,
because they ain't gonna
right.
make it again." No, that's really awesome. I do like that. So, let me ask you a question. You've been in this scene for a long time now, and you've kinda grown through it. What advice would you give today to a younger VW enthusiast that might be new to the air-cooled scene? Or maybe even you did a lot of shows, a new show organizer. What type of advice would you give to somebody getting into it now?
The guys that are getting into the Volkswagen, whether air cooled or water cooled, you know, if you see another air cooled or Volkswagen guy, talk to him, get to know him, find out about local clubs, or on the Facebook, you know, clubs. You might not ever meet that person face to face, but if you find out that they're local, you probably are going to see them somewhere in town or see them at a show. And like I say, everybody's helpful. And they can help you grow, help you with your car ideas, where to source out a mechanic or something, which is getting harder and harder to do. But
Amen.
just kind of in the local scene, and you'll probably your love for the whole deal will grow. It might not, but even if you just have a small interest in the hobby, it's still well worth it. but I believe if you get into it like that, you and locally and
But what I'm hearing from you is what I'm hearing from you is get plugged in and get plugged into the local scene, the local community. I went to a church many years back, and the pastor did a really good job of connecting. And he made you feel like you wanted to be a part of the club, essentially. And I think that's what you're talking about. But he talked about back then the importance of plugging in to the community, plugging into, the opportunities that are there, plugging into the meetups and the right. And that's kind of what you're saying. Find the locals, find the scene, get connected, get plugged in. I think that's very sound advice. And I'll be honest with you, I've heard other Volkswagen guys say that same thing. So there's obviously weight in that, right? It's very important.
Yeah.
I've got some fast questions, some rapid fire, you know, fast answers. I got about maybe
Okay.
5, maybe 10 of them to throw at you. All right. First one I got for you, lowered or stock height? What do you fancy?
Depends on the car.
All right.
Bus, single cab needs to be lowered a little bit. I don't like the slam stuff, but if it's air ride, you can do what you want to with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
sure.
and I don't like that camber in the back where they lay those wheels. Yeah, I
Yeah.
call that UK style. On my deal with the stock or lowered is just depending on which vehicle it is.
That's a good answer. All right. How about
When I
favorite?
had, oh, I'm sorry. When I had the
Okay.
when I had the vintage look on my car, of course, I had the big white walls and everything. You don't want to lower that, But then when I put the drop spindles and everything, I put different tires and rims and a little bit lowered. So anyway,
All right. How about favorite color?
ceiling wax red and chestnut brown.
All right. One VW event that everybody should attend.
Eureka Springs, Arkansas.
What's
It's
the
the
what's the name of
weekend
the
of
event?
the Eureka Springs VW weekend. I think I'm not for sure exactly.
Okay.
There's 3 Volkswagen events going on at the same time, the same weekend. One of them is at the host hotel is everything, and all Volkswagens. Then they have one at another area that is mainly water cooled. Then they have another show that's, both different ones. And what happened, the show got so large in the parking lot of the hotel and the convention center, they just had to, they split up. But at the end of the day, we have a parade through this little cool little artsy town in the mountains, about 300 cars that
Nice.
all three
That's a
vote,
good number.
police, escort, the whole 9 yards. The people
Yes.
line the streets, we throw candy. It's worth going. It's 585 miles that I used to drive my single cab up there every year in the single cab and back. It's worth going up there just for that parade. All the townspeople, it's a big deal. That little town, to keep the tourists, they have a Harley weekend. They have a Corvette weekend. They have
Good.
all sorts
Good.
of different ones.
Yeah,
And the
that's
people
awesome.
of the neighborhoods get out on their front yards and they downtown, it's 10 deep. I mean, it's unbelievable
That's
how
awesome,
much
man.
you feel. I mean, that one day you're a celebrity, you know what I mean? It's a cool deal.
Yeah, good. That's special. I love to hear about that. All right. Most overrated VW of all time.
That new electric bus.
All right, the ID Buzz.
Yeah,
ID
yeah.
Buzz. As far as buses go, split or bay?
I like the splits, but I just missed a deal in Florida on a bay window. So it's a single cab. So, but yeah, I like the split buses.
Okay. What's one tool that you always forget to bring?
A jack.
A jack. Hey, man, solid answer. Been around the scene for a long time. Next question, could be a very interesting one for you. Do you have anybody in the scene that you consider like your VW hero?
Yes, sir. Very strong on this one. Bob Winters, the man behind the zone, Bob Falk, a great friend of mine in Sioux City, Iowa, that has been, we met him on a mountain in Colorado at a show and been in 1999 and been great friends ever since.
Awesome.
And Dean Kirsten has been just awesome throughout Volkswagen. fun days, and still is a great friend. But I was lucky he had family in Texas at the time, so he would come down and he would meet here in Belton, another little town right by us, and we'd eat barbecue because he said they couldn't get good barbecue in California.
Hey
So
man,
we all
you can't get good
that,
barbecue in Florida either. So I,
yeah,
I still come to Texas several times a year, teach a sales class to, younger, well, not, I can't say younger, to technicians in the trades. And I get the
yeah.
privilege, and I say the privilege of coming to Austin, and I get to eat some very good barbecue. So super, super awesome. In that
I,
area where you're at, I think I might even mention this. I used to teach a class up there too in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and I used to get brought to this place called Heim, Heim, Heim Barbecue
yeah,
downtown
Heim,
Fort
yeah,
Worth.
oh yeah,
They got the
absolutely.
barbecue
Yeah, Fort
bacon burnt
Worth,
ends. Oh, come on. Those
man, let's
burnt
go
ends
down.
are something else, man. Yeah, so yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with that person. There is no barbecue in the world like barbecue in Texas.
you're exactly right.
Yep,
And
yep.
like I say, next time you come to Austin or Fort Worth, you give me a holler, and we'll go.
Yeah,
That would be so much fun.
I'll be in Austin. My next class is October. So yeah, I'll be happy to connect with you at that time. All right. If you're playing a song and you're cruising in the dub, what song's playing on your playlist?
Anything Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin.
Yeah,
Awesome. Led
yeah. I
Zeppelin.
like
Awesome.
Stairway to Heaven. Also like Freebird, by Leonard Skinner. Any of his solos are good. You know what I mean? Joe Bonamassa. I got so many, but most of my stuff includes electric guitars. I love the blues guitars, with electrics.
Yeah.
Any of that stuff I dig.
Money no object. Favorite VW ever. Even if it's got to be a project. What's it going to be?
I would like to have a barn door bus that's ceiling wax red, chestnut brown, 23 window.
Ooh, that's a beauty.
Yep.
So Oval Office on Facebook, how do people connect with you? How do they find you? You got Oval listeners that are going to definitely be listening to this podcast. How do they connect with you? How do they find you on Facebook?
The best way I think is go to Paul Smith, and then I'll have something on there of the Oval Office, and you can probably hit that, and it'll take you to the Oval Office.
No problem,
That's
man. No
awesome.
problem. All right. So final thoughts from you on, I guess, your legacy on the scene in general. It's almost like saying
So,
goodbye, right? We're like, hold on, I don't want to get the final thoughts yet, but what did I not cover? What would you want to say to the Volkswagen scene, the Volkswagen community that's listening?
like I say, anything I do is not for profit. Like when I when I get a car or nothing or something, it's not to resell. This is my hobby, my main hobby. As far but drag racing also. But like I say, it's not a monetary thing to me at all. We used to have a saying at the bus campouts: the Volkswagen gets you there, but the people keep you there.
Ooh, that's
Which
absolutely
we live
solid
by
gold.
that.
I'm gonna have
And
to agree with that.
yep, I would, and things like that make me happy when I hear, Paul, my wife wouldn't go to any other show but the shows that you put on because we knew they'd have clean restrooms. Stuff like that makes you really feel great. And like I said, just the longevity, I guess, that I've had and still enjoy it and have so many good friends in the deal. It's so cool.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Dub Life Diaries. Thanks for riding along with us and diving into these incredible stories of the people in the dubs that drive their dreams. If you love today's episode, don't forget to subscribe or hit that follow button so you never miss an adventure. Do you have a story to tell or know somebody else who's living the dub life? Awesome! Reach out to us. You can find us on all socials at Dub Life Diaries or shoot me an email. I'm not hard to find. dublifediaries@gmail.com. Until next time, keep the engines humming and the wheels turning, and always follow the road that inspires you. This is Joe Person. I'm signing off. I'll catch you on the next ride.